Hello, welcome to episode number 5 of Tech Talk with Steve. I'm your host, Steve Cowles with AEM Test. Before I introduce today's special guest, just want to give a shout out to all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on here. Jacqueline Walker and Lisa Schwartz do a great job behind the scenes, keeping this show up and running, giving us content, making sure everything runs smoothly. So just so you know, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. It's not just me. And Lisa is going to be our special guest today. She's going to join us and talk about Qualification Plus testing, what it is and why you might need it. Welcome, Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me on your show. And shout out to you from last week. We are fresh off the BIXI trade show, which was, I'm pretty sure, Steve, it was our first trade show since the BIXI Winter Conference in 2020.
Yes.
In February, I think it was. So it was a little funny. All of the vendors were a little bit rusty, I think, getting the whole trade show thing back. And I did manage to come back with a little bit of a sore throat. But all in all, I think, what do you think? It was a great show last week.
I think it went well. I think a lot of us were talking about the fact that we used muscles that we hadn't used for a while in setting up booths.
And standing all day. We were not used to standing all day, right? Yep. So, but yeah, it was a great show. It was so good to be with customers and, see friends of ours at other vendors again. It was just a feeling, like the world's getting back to normal again. So
exactly.
Was really excited about being able to do that event. Also at that event, we got some awards. We announced build out to the network service assistant, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So I do have to say, though, from an awards perspective, I'm going to start with that because we are all just so thrilled at the awards that we received from CINM Magazine. Our TestPro CV100 Smart Building Test Kits won a Platinum Award. Our Network Service Assistant that we're going to talk about today won Gold. And our Mixed Mode Multi-Port Vector Analyzer, say that 10 times fast, or the MMVNA, won a Silver Award. So we were pretty stoked about that. But let me go ahead and I'm going to show a slide, but you know that old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I think as I start to talk to you guys about what Qualification Plus is, there's so much to it. I really needed to put it on a slide because it's hard for me to just say it and make sure that it's clear and easily understood. But the product we're really going to be focusing on today is the Network Service Assistant. It really sets the stage for a new category in test equipment with Qualification Plus. And as we kind of think about, the old norms, I'm going to say, for what is typically referred to as a verification tool or a qualification tool, or a certification tool, what the Network Service Assistant does is it really kind of bridges the divide between that verification, qualification, and certification, and creates this category in the middle here. You see I kind of have it highlighted with Qualification Plus. And what it is and why we built it is, also behind the scenes is an amazing engineering team that has got decades and decades of experience developing test and measurement equipment. And one of the things that they combined with the marketing and sales teams, we all sat down and really kind of took a look at, networks are changing. With the influx of smart building technologies, users are needing to do far, far more than just certify the physical infrastructure. And that is a big focus of our TestPro product. Very, very purpose-built for smart buildings. But one of the things we realized is that when we think about the network owner or those IT departments, your IT administrators and the folks doing frontline network troubleshooting, one of the things we realized is that they have a challenge. And that challenge is that sometimes they need to certify the cable. And the only way they can do it today is to call in their contractor to do it, spend a lot of money, time, or buy a certifier. And when you only have to certify once in a while, that's not your really primary business. You weigh the cost of that versus the tools that they would need to buy to do their everyday tasks for managing moves, adds, and changes. Being able to verify link connectivity. Where does this wall jack go in relation to its connection path into the switch port? Troubleshooting tools. Somebody calls up and complains the network is slow. Having trace route and ping and a series of tools to do that. And then there's Wi-Fi troubleshooting. Where are my dead zones? What Wi-Fi access points can I see from this area? And then also thinking about smart building technologies, there are so many things that are connecting to the network now that require power over Ethernet. As much as Steve and I talk about it, it still just amazes me, and there's more things coming on every day. There's the things we all know, like security cameras, access points, badge scanners, those kinds of things. But window coverings, believe it or not, are now connected to the network and controlled by PoE. Sensors, is the room hot? Is it cold? It's cold. Oh, hey, window coverings lower. That's all controlled by power over Ethernet. So having those capabilities built in. Fiber optic, being able to make sure that the right power is available on those fiber optic links. For the network owners, this means 3 to 4 different types of products, and it becomes very cost prohibitive. When we think about the learning curve of the staff, having to learn all of these different tools, keeping track of the tools, keeping them maintained. And we found that users simply can't afford to do it. And what that meant was that some of their needs went unmet. They had to make trade-offs and they had to make a choice. Do I buy a certifier or do I buy a qualifier to do these other tasks I need to do? And when we took a look at the technology that we have with TestPro and the multifunction nature of our test platforms, we realized there's really some groundbreaking activity that we could do here in bringing out a new product that bridges the gap, taking advantage of the multifunction nature of what we do, but specifically design this tool for the network owner. So that's really how the Network Service Assistant was born. And when we take a look at the different types of testing that needs to be done between your verification and qualification can sometimes be put into a very similar category versus your certification, we designed a technology that we call Certilite. And it's really at the heart of being able to bridge this gap. Certilite performs all of the RF testing requirements that certification grade tester needs. This is when you're getting into the standards-based cable testing and looking at the crosstalk and impedance and resistance and all those things that you have to do to certify a cable. But for a network owner, they don't always necessarily need to do that bidirectionally. Whereas a cable contractor who has to comply with cable manufacturer warranties does. So with Certilite technology And using the small passive terminator that we use with the Network Service Assistant, it allows us to be able to do standards-based cable testing in addition to wired network connectivity, wireless network connectivity, the PoE load testing, all of those different things that we need now to manage smart buildings. Within the announcement that we made last week, some of the new build-outs that we've done, a couple of really cool additions to the product. One is, and I'm going to fast forward here on my slides, one of those is something that we call a link identifier kit. And hypothetically speaking, you go into a network environment and things are not documented as far as what wall jack is connected to what switch port. I know it's completely hypothetical, wink, wink, and you never run into this, but excuse me. But our link identifier kit has 8 office IDs numbered 2 through 8 that allow you to go into your closet, plug all of those in, and then you can go out into the workstation area and just start plugging in to different wall outlets, and it's going to tell you, you just hit number 4, you just hit number 6, you just hit number 2. So not only does it help you make that mapping, but what's very unique and why we call it advanced link identification is that these are not dumb remotes that just simply tell you, I just hit number 1, I just hit number 3, I just hit number 4. They actually have Certolite technology in them. And when you make that connection, as soon as the tester sees there is connection made, it'll give you a wire map indication, and then it allows you to actually run an auto test and perform those RF testing requirements. Near and crosstalk, impedance, resistance, all of those different measurements that you would need to do to verify, does this link pass Cat 5e through Cat 6a? You can do that using our office IDs, so they're smart. They're not just dumb terminators. The other thing that we added in our link identification kit is a noise filtering tone probe receiver from Tempo. And what's really cool about this tone probe is that you know when you've been in the closet and you're trying to tone out cables or ports, however you choose to do it, and when it's got a lot of noise from RF interference, it's really hard to hear the tone and which port or which cable you're trying to hone in on. This tone probe receiver has the ability to filter out the noise. And these things combined, we put that into a single kit that we call the Link Identifier Kit. So we now make that offering. And as part of this whole effort, we just created a series of new kits where we're pre-configuring things for you. I'm going to pause there for a minute, and we're going to go to a demonstration to show you what we mean by the technology in our office identifiers, as well as the noise filtering capability in that tone probe. So let's go ahead and go now to a demonstration of that technology.
Hello, this is Steve Cowles with AEM Test. I'm here to talk about some new accessories for your Network Service Assistant, also known as the NSA. You see here I have my NSA sitting on my table. I've got my original remote terminator that came with the unit, which some of you may or may not be aware that the remote terminator has ID number 1. This is the original that came with the unit. And these are part of our advanced link identification system. So what does advanced link identification mean? Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and plug my remote terminator in. I'm going to go ahead and select Certolite on my testing. And then when I plug this cable that comes from the NSA into the other port that corresponds to the other end of that link, I can see immediately I show remote ID number 1, and I see a wire map. Live wire map is part of what we get in the NSA. But we can also run the auto test. And these auto tests comply with the TIA 1152A test limits. So you're going to see the same type of parameters that you would see in a full-blown certification test. I'll go ahead and run the test now. And you can see here that the test passed. We get details you'd expect to see in a certifier. This is the difference with the Certilite testing technology built into the NSA as compared to most qualifiers. This is why we call it Qualification Plus. We give you a lot of parameters that you normally wouldn't see in a qualifier. You'd have to have a certifier to see these things. If we go into the details screen, we can look at things like network compliance and see that we're able to run up to 10 gig on this cable. We can look at DC resistance and see both the loop resistance and peer-to-peer unbalance, which is important for power over Ethernet. We can also see things like insertion loss, we can see crosstalk plots, and if we go farther down the list, we have some tools for the technician that are TDR-based tools, return loss locator and next locator. So we can look at next locator, for instance, and we can see where the crosstalk is along this particular piece of cable. So I'll go ahead and back out of the test here, and I'm going to grab one of my other remote IDs, and we'll plug that in. And we'll just move over to the link that corresponds to the other end of that. And we see now this is remote ID number 8. And just like with the first remote ID number 1, I can still run this Certilite test. So these are not just dumb remotes that only give you an ID number. This is what we call advanced link identification. So not only does it identify the link, but it allows you to run this TIA 1152A test. I'm going to go ahead and run the auto test. And in this case, we see that the auto test failed. We failed for return loss and crosstalk. Let's go look at the details. Let's just check out that near and crosstalk locator again and see what we find. Here we see a large spike, and if I click on the spike, I can see how far out it is. It's 90 feet away. That's at the other end of this link. So I would want to look at where that remote terminator, that advanced link identifier number 8 is plugged in. There's probably an issue, and in this case I happen to know that the issue is that the pair is not twisted all the way up to the point of termination. There's probably about 1.5 inches of untwist. So that's what's causing the crosstalk there. These are the kind of things that you get with Qualification Plus on the Certilite test that's found in the Network Service Assistant. So why would you want multiple remotes that you could test to? Well, the multiple remotes will help you identify that wires maybe aren't labeled. You can figure out where they go. Maybe somebody mislabeled something prior to your arrival. You're testing a legacy system. Maybe somebody didn't label it at all and you need to figure out where it goes. So the remote identifiers allow you to plug into telecommunications outlets around the facility and then be back in the closet with your NSA and test and figure out which one you're connected to. Additionally, this kit is available. The number 1 comes with the unit. You've got kit that gives you 2 through 8. And then there's another version of the kit that adds on top of remotes 2 through 8 this Tempo 200 FP filter probe. So if you ever have to do tone and probe operation, and that's another part of identifying where these runs go, so maybe you want to use your tone and probe rather than ID numbers, we can go into Expert Tools and we can turn on the tone generator. And I'm just going to select tone number 2. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and turn the probe on. And when I first turn it on, you can hear a buzz from AC voltage harmonics. So that's very common. Anybody that's done the tone and probe operation has seen this. Doesn't matter what kind of RF probe you're using, you're going to see this buzz. Sometimes you can still find that tone. And I can get to that jack. I can see, yeah, I'm getting tone there, but sometimes you may not be able to pick up that tone, and you want to get rid of that noise. First off, it's annoying. I'll hit the filter, and now I can get in there and find that tone much more readily. Now additionally, you may notice there is a LED on here that's blinking, and it gets close to solid as we get right on that wire and we see that tone. It lights up. It's a signal strength indicator. The signal strength indicator is useful for a couple of things. If you get in an environment, you got a lot of equipment, a lot of noise in the background, and you can't really hear the tone, you can watch that light and see that light up, and you'll know you're on the tone. More importantly, anytime you're doing a tone and probe operation, there's always the chance of bleed over between ports on a panel or between cables in a bundle. What this LED will do is if you if you're hearing tone on multiple ports or in multiple cables in a bundle, what you'll want to do is you'll go back and forth between those, and initially when you've got the gain turned up on the side, you're going to see that LED will light up most of the time. Turn that gain down a little bit at a time, keep going back and forth between those multiple tones that you're hearing in your ear, and at some point you'll get that gain turned down to just the right spot where only the wire that you're trying to find will cause that LED to light up. And that's how you determine that you're on that link. So this is the Advanced Link Identification Kit, including the 200 FP filter probe from Tempo Communications. Now, you've used this to find where these wires go because you had a problem and you needed to figure out where the wires are going, whether you did it with the link IDs or you did it with the tone and probe operation. Hopefully now you'll go ahead and label everything so nobody down the road has to deal with this problem as well. And you might have your brother labeling tool to go ahead and do this. So you can also take the same labeling scheme that you're using in your NSA that you've created in a CSV file, import it into your NSA, but you can also import that into your brother labeling tool. So pretty cool feature there. Anyway, that is the Network Service Assistant Advanced Link Identification Kit.
Awesome. Always great demos from you, Steve. Appreciate that. Couple of things going through that I just wanted to highlight. On the DC resistance, it just made me think of quite a few questions we got, and I know you were right there at the booth last week, but we had some people asking us about, well, what is the difference between DC resistance testing for PoE versus PoE load testing? Seems to be there's some confusion out there in the marketplace about that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lisa, because there are some people out there that are referring to DC resistance unbalance testing as PoE testing, and it is not. DC resistance unbalance testing is important, and it's something you do prior to the PoE being deployed. You do it while you're certifying the cable. It's just an extension of the certification test, and it compares each pair to every other pair to make sure that the resistance is not too far off between pairs. And it also compares that resistance within the pair between the two conductors. And there's a certain allowable amount, and if it exceeds that, it can cause problems with PoE. So it's an important test to run, but it's not a PoE test. Once the PoE is deployed, once your network's up and running, it's very important to run a true PoE test. And what we do is a PoE load test. We'll actually connect to the opposite end of the link where the PD would attach. We'll run a test into that PSE. We'll verify that Ethernet connection and demand PoE load at whatever level you choose, whether it's the AF, AT, or BT level, and confirm that you can actually get that power delivered out to the endpoint. So that's a PoE test versus the other one. It's a pre-qualifier for the cable.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Appreciate that, Steve. All right, so I am going to go back to my slide for just a second here. So the other addition that we just added was fiber optic loopback testing. And we've got a kit called the NSA K31 that is our fiber test kit. And in that test kit, we include both the single mode and multi-mode fiber adapter, and you can kind of see them over here to the right. Not sure if you can see my mouse moving or not. That kit also includes our fiber optic inspection scope. And as all kits do, all kits include our AD NSA test adapter, which is what gives you that Certilite functionality, the PoE load testing, the multi-gigabit testing up to 10 gig. That's always standard in all kits. But our fiber optic test kit is new, and it includes the fiber loopback. So I am going to go now to a quick demo on the fiber optic loopback testing.
Hello, Steve Cowles here with AEM Test. Today we're going to talk about the fiber optic testing options with the Network Service Assistant. So you see in front of you here, I have my NSA. I've got a single mode fiber adapter loaded in the top Got my reference cords attached. I also have an electrical jumper here that we've got connected to the power conductors on a hybrid powered fiber. So we've got a 2-strand hybrid powered fiber here with the black and red electrical conductors there. I've already done my set reference, done my inspection, my cleaning of my connectors and everything. I'm just going to go ahead and connect my test reference cord to the fiber under test. And you see we have a live wire map, just like we do with copper testing when we do Certolite testing with the Network Service Assistant. We immediately see that we've got a link here, and I'm going to go ahead and run my auto test. And in a short few seconds, we have the test results. And we can see here that that power that we measured over that hybrid powered fiber is showing at 56.25 volts. This is PoE level power that I'm running over this hybrid powered fiber. I can see the length of my fiber. I see the delay. I can see my margin at both wavelengths. I can go to my loss tab here, and I can observe the loss for 1310 nanometers. I can also observe the loss for 1550, and I see the margins for both as well. The third tab we have here is our network limits. This tells us, based on the fiber type that we've chosen in our test setup, and based on the test itself, how the results came in, what we can run over this fiber. So we can see here, we can run everything up to 100 gig over this piece of fiber. And we can go ahead and save this test result, just like we do all of our other test results on NSA or on TestPro for that matter. And now we've got that test record with not just the fiber loss, but also that hybrid power voltage that we've got connected at the far end. Now we also have under expert tools, that's where you'll find that fiber inspection. You'll find the VFL built in here. And if I hit the VFL and go ahead and turn it on, you can see the light start to blink. I've got a red protective cap on there, but it's pretty evident that that's blinking. That'll help you find a break typically at one end or the other in your distribution panel. And you've got standalone light source and power meter mode here. And in standalone light source and power meter mode, we can actually measure the absolute power coming from the far end. And we can also see the voltage if the voltage is hooked up. And we can do this at both 1310 and 1550. And this can be set up as just a light source or just a power meter as well. So if you have a secondary light source that you want to use on the far end, or you want to just measure the absolute power coming from the equipment, you can do that as well. The project setup is pretty basic. We can go in and you can edit the project. You can choose from certification setup or loss budget setup, and then go in and choose the appropriate standards. We are in loopback mode. Loopback testing is the only fiber testing you'll be doing with NSA. If you need to do bidirectional testing or dual-ended single direction testing, you would want to look at the TestPro, our full certification tester. And under cables, you can choose generic cables or a variety of manufacturers from within the cable library. You can select your connector, edit your labeling scheme and everything else, just like you do on the TestPro copper projects or the Certolite NSA copper projects. Same fit, form, and function. The fiber kits for the NSA, you can get a multi-mode or a single mode. Both kits will include the reference cords, the fiber adapter itself, and the multi-mode kit will also include a mandrel. And both kits also include the loopback adapter, either single mode or multi-mode, for that far end. Please visit our website at www.aem-test.com for detailed information on the fiber test kits available for the Network Service Assistant, as well as all of our other products. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. So just to kind of wrap up, I'm going to highlight the Kitson Pricing. So your K30 is your basic Certolite test kit. The K31 gives you both your single mode and multi-mode fiber optic testing, in addition to the Certolite testing. Our K60, we would kind of refer to that as our identifier test kit. That's going to give you your Certolite adapter plus that link identifier kit. And while I don't note it here, the noise filtering tone probe actually comes in a 50 hertz and a 60 hertz. So you would order it based on which hertz you need depending on where you are in the world. And then, of course, we've got our full-blown K61, which is our smart building test kit, which is everything but the kitchen sink. So with that, are there any, let's see, do we see any questions?
No, I think we're good.
All right. So I think that wraps it up. Steve, is there anything I missed?
No, you pretty much covered it all, Lisa. Great job.
All right. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. And Steve, thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks for being here, Lisa. We'll see everybody next week.